Yo, 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 what's up, everybody?
What up, boys?
What's going on?
What's going on? It is
This division's gonna go crazy, bro.
Yes, it is. It's Thursday, August 10th. We're here, so we talking about sports. I'm Roland. Here, we're joined by Ron and Ben. We're here to break down the AFC North. Guys, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I got my Bengals cap on. I'm ready to go, bro. You know what it is. I'm in the pocket like bro. I know Ben was waiting for me to say that.
I knew it was coming, Ron. I knew it was coming, but
calling
my
me out
day's
all
been
year?
all right. Probably just finished the worst round of golf in my life, to be honest with you. It was bad. But here we are
Really?
now.
Did you break 100?
Oh, I probably like in the front nine I shot 100, bro. It was disgusting.
It was one of those. Okay.
Yeah, it was my first time in about a month, and it looked like it was my first time in a year.
Well, that sounds like me every time I go out there, so yeah, you're good.
We played here in New Braunfels, the Landa Park, the one down by the river and Schlitterbahn.
Nice. So
it was cool, man. And the heat is crazy, bro. It's too hot.
I was gonna say, like, why are you even out there right now?
Yeah, no, it was a big mistake, bro. But like I said, it was the worst round of my life. By hole 12, I was like, hey, like, let's go, or what? Y'all really want to finish? But not everybody was playing as bad as me, so.
Yeah, we'll just blame your hot score to the weather, bro.
Yeah,
I was gonna say we're in that part of the Texas summer where going out and playing golf, you really have to go in the evening maybe or early in the morning to avoid that Texas heat and to avoid dying like you were talking about. But before we get into the AFC North, guys, football is one step closer. We're watching some preseason football in the background. We got the Patriots and Texans going on. CJ Stroud making his debut, but also something else came back this week. Ron, you did a little preview video about it. Hard Knocks, the Jets, Aaron Rodgers, welcome to New York. What are your first impressions of Hard Knocks this season?
I wanted to go play for Coach, man. That speech that he gave in the beginning with the eagle and the crow.
You're a bald eagle?
Yeah, I'm definitely an eagle, bro. I'm definitely an eagle. You guys will never say you're Eagles because, I mean, we know you're Patriots, right?
Yeah, I can never say that.
You would never say that. But that coach that he gave just set off the episode, man, the tone of the episode. It was really good. They focused a lot on Rodgers. I mean, those guys were on his, you know what, the entirety of the show, as it should be. But regardless, it was a good first episode, and I look forward to the next ones.
Yeah, I haven't gotten around to watching it, to be honest with you. I'm not an HBO Max subscriber, so Justin's out of commission right now with the bootleg links, so I haven't tuned in yet.
I got it, bro. We need to hook you up. Gorilla Box, bro.
Oh,
yeah, I put it on and I fell asleep like 5 minutes in. So, not too excited.
Roland said that speech wasn't shit.
Not too excited, but I'm just notedly not a Aaron Rodgers fan, so neither here nor there. But let's get into it. The reason why we're here, AFC North, one of the tougher divisions in the NFL this year. I think it's safe to say. Last year, maybe a little bit different, but looking here by the odds, everybody's lined pretty closely. Got the Bengals as just short favorites at plus 150 right now. As we all know, they're dealing with some issues with Joe Burrow, followed by the Ravens, Browns, and then the Steelers there at plus 450. So let's just get into it. Let's get into it with the favorites, Cincinnati Bengals. They're the back-to-back champs. They got Ron sporting the cap here. Got Joe Burrow in the pocket, back-to-back champs again. 22 record, 12-4, 6-1 at home, 6-3 on the road. Interestingly enough, they split against the division. Everybody in the division had a 3-3 record against one another. So that just goes to show you when these guys beat up on each other in division. They ended up losing in the AFC Conference Championship game to the Kansas City Chiefs, 23-20. And they played a lot of close games last year, 8 of them, 5-3 in those games. And they're going to do pretty good when you have Joe Burrow. And the question that I'm going to leave with you guys, should Joe Burrow, should he rush back week 1? He's dealing with that injury. He had the calf strain going down early in training camp. We all saw the video. He got carted off. That's the big storyline going into the season. Should Joe Burrow rush it back? Will he be ready by week 1? And before we move any further, guys, quick take on that. Do you think Joe Burrow should rush back for week 1?
Ron, go ahead. It's your boy.
I don't think he needs to rush back for week 1 because we're going to get into the schedule later. But he has He has the Browns week 1, the Rams week 3, the Cardinals week 5, and Seattle week 6, and they go into the bye week 7. So I don't think you need him in those first 6 games. I would chill. I would make sure that he's extremely healthy because you have the capability to still get those wins without him. And regardless of it, you're going to be in the hunt at the end of the year. Make sure he's healthy, and then
you're tripping, Ron. You're tripping hard.
All right, let me know.
You got a division game in week 1 and a division game in week 2.
Correct.
Yes, he needs to be back because they ain't winning those games without him. So not necessarily rush back because, I mean, it was a calf strain. It's not like it was something, crazy, right? But he's a guy that if he can just stay in the pocket, and be cautious against a team like the Browns, too, that's one of those teams where there's not many possessions in the football game either, just based off, that ground and pound style that the Browns play. So I definitely think that I don't think it's rushing him back to get him back by week 1, but he does need to be there with 2 division games to start off the season, 100%.
Yeah, and they have been pretty mum about it. Zach Taylor has, pretty much said that his recovery is going to be several weeks. When they asked him about it again this week, he again said, hey, I said it was several weeks, and, that's kind of the diagnosis right now. And Ben, Ron, what do you take any onus in Jamar Chase saying, hey, you don't need to rush back by week 1. If you come back by week 5, we're good. We just need you for the long haul. I'm kind of on that side with you, Ron. You don't need to rush it back because, Ben, even though it wasn't that bad of an injury, that calf strain, I'm not going to say it's the same thing, but we saw I'm Kevin Durant. He had a calf strain for a long time. He came back too early. That turned into an Achilles. I'm just saying, these calf strains, if you don't nurse them correctly, it could end up being a worse injury down the line. That's all that I'm saying.
I get it, but like to do a 5-step and 3-step drop back, your calf's going to be all right. Just stay in the pocket, play smart. Kevin Durant's jumping, running up and down the court, cutting on a dime. It's completely different. I think that he can play through it. Like I said, I don't know if you want to start off 0-2 and have 2 of those losses be in the division, because I think that they would be underdogs without Joe Burrow to both of those teams.
Yeah, and speaking of the lines and whatnot, we have these odds here on the right side. Vegas really hasn't moved their lines too much off of this Joe Burrow injury because he is going to play this season. It's not like he's at risk of missing the whole year. So odds haven't moved too much. And just to run through them, Super Bowl plus 1,100, AFC Championship plus 550. To win the North, as we said earlier, they're the favorites at plus 150. Season total over under 10.5. You talk about the beginning of the season. Joe Burrow might not be there. That can have an effect on this over under. It is currently juiced to the over at minus 130. Then you got the playoffs to make. Yes, minus 255 and some individual odds here. Burrow, he's a favorite right now to win MVP at plus 750 or one of the short favorites. And Chase, he is the odds-on favorite to win Offensive Player of the Year this year, kind of following that trends of wide receivers winning that award. Just to move on real quickly before we give, some general takes and whatnot, this is what they've done in the offseason so far. Their draft pretty much dominated by defense and special teams. 5 out of the 8 picks were of that nature, starting with the first round, drafting edge. And then in the middle, they get some backup or running back help, possibly with Chase Brown, around 5 out of Illinois. Then a few receivers, because I do want to point to the departures. They lost Samaje Perine in the offseason, signed with the Broncos. Jesse Bates, another good safety, signed with the Falcons. And then they lost Hayden Hurst and Von Bell, but did sign Orlando Brown to help out there on the offensive line for Joe Burrow. So pretty normal offseason for these guys. Did lose a little bit. Do you make any note of them losing a guy like Samaje Perine?
I mean, we'll talk about it later, but for fantasy purposes, yeah, I do, because, maybe that makes Joe Mixon that 3. Who else? Can we name anybody else in that backfield besides, the rookie they just drafted? So Samaje Perine was their 3rd down back. That's got to help Joe Mixon a lot.
Yeah, I think Mixon is definitely going to be a target for fantasy, and I believe he took a pay cut even to stay with the team. He was one of the guys that went out and said, I'll do whatever it takes to stay a Bengal. I want to win with these guys, and they're all young. I think they're under 25, and when you have a little click going on, it's something that you don't want to not be a part of if they do get over that hump and win the Super Bowl. You don't want to say, I went to the Super Bowl, I went to the AFC Championship, and we never won. I bounced, and then we finally did it. So I
Yeah,
think
so-
the best bet for me, man. I think that they still do well. I have them at 12-5 on the year and only losing one game at home. They went 3-3 last year in the division, and look where they ended up. That's why I'm saying that week 1 and week 2 games aren't that bad, because they went 3-3 last year, like Roland said, and they still did well. So don't rush Burrow back. They still get over 10.5 wins. I have them at 12-5, and the worst part last year was not the offense, obviously, bro. It was the defense. And what did they go out and do? Like Roland mentioned, they get Jordan Battle, a safety from Alabama, a cornerback from Michigan, first overall in the first round. They get an edge from Clemson. I mean, these guys beefed up their defense. We always say, did they focus on the things that they needed? Did they get better in the offseason? And I think that they did. So Samaje Perine was great, but hey, I mean, he's a decent guy. He was an RB2. Let's just face it. So it's not a huge loss for me, man.
Okay. Yeah, all right. I don't with Joe Burrow being out. I mean, I don't know if I see 12. If Joe Burrow comes back week 6, I don't know if I see 12 wins. I see them as underdogs to the Browns, the Ravens, the Titans, and the Seahawks. That's worst case scenario, right? That he comes back by the bye week. But with that question mark, I just don't feel safe anywhere besides make play. Who wants to lay, minus 255?
Correct.
Yeah, you laid it out pretty good for me, Ben, as far as where I'm standing with the Bengals and these odds here. I'm probably just staying away with this whole Joe Burrow injury. To be quite honest, it kind of disappointed me to hear that he got hurt in the preseason, because he really hasn't had a full preseason his whole career, just dealing with injuries and whatnot, and B, because of Jamar Chase. We'll talk about that later with fantasy. And C, I was just excited for this team to bet on them, because they've established themselves as one of the top 3 teams in the AFC, along with the Bills and the Chiefs, in terms of, they're there when it matters. So probably going to stay away from everything Bengals related for the time being, unless we get a vote of confidence from the Bengals that Joe Burrow has overcome his injury. It's not going to be a problem, and there's nothing to worry about, because I still do worry if they rush him back too early, could lead to further injury. But without further ado, let's get to fantasy. This is one of the main reasons why we're here every week. This is a fantasy football outlook for the Cincinnati Bengals. They got about 4 players to note. There's probably some other guys that'll sneak in there on a weekly basis, but the 4 main guys are Joe Burrow at QB5, Joe Mixon at running back 12, a little bit of value in terms of where Joe Mixon usually is in terms of, he's usually in the top 10, but in terms of running backs, Jamar Chase, wide receiver 2 this year. As I said, he's expected to win in terms of Vegas odds, the offensive player of the year. And then you got T. Higgins, is a wide receiver 2 counterpart, probably a wide receiver 1 on most teams, lining up at a wide receiver 14 with a fantasy football or PPR for ESPN Fantasy. I mentioned Joe Mixon. I mentioned Samaje Perine earlier. Does this make you want to attack Joe Mixon in your fantasy drafts, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you're somebody who's going to get his stock right now, he's going late second, early third. So if you're somebody that's in, those top 4 picks or top 5, top 6, you're taking, the Kelseys, the Cooper Kupps, the Jamar Chases, the receivers, that's definitely a running back that you get either on the way back or early third round where he's going right now. I think that it's a lot of value for where his ADP is. Now, it's early, and obviously first preseason games are being played this week. I do think that he can sneak himself into the top 10, even without playing much regular season. Just because, like we said, it's more workload for him now that Perine is gone. So, honestly, Joe Mixon is the only guy that I like on this fantasy list because of the Burrow injury. T. Higgins, I think he's being drafted way too high for obviously a wide receiver number 2. It's kind of touchdown or bust. And that's why I don't understand how Jamar Chase can be the favorite for Offensive Player of the Year.
Let's just say, let's just make these assumptions with Joe Burrow being healthy. Let's say Joe Burrow's healthy. He overcomes his injury.
I still would.
T. Higgins or Olave?
Olave.
T. Higgins and this is a wide receiver 1, but I'm just asking because I've seen them ADP wise. Calvin Ridley.
I'd go Calvin Ridley.
Okay.
I'm not drafting T. Higgins. He's just on my draft board. He's not getting drafted. The Jamar Chase with Joe Burrow being there healthy, if you know for sure, We know their connection, right? So he's going to be one of his go-to guys. But honestly, I'd rather have Kelsey, bro. I'd rather have Kelsey. I might take Eckler over him. Like Jefferson, CMC, Kelsey, I'd probably take over Jamar Chase, to be honest.
With a healthy Burrow?
With the healthy Burrow, I'd take Jamar Chase over Kelsey, but I'm still taking CMC and Justin Jefferson.
I was so high on this team, fantasy-wise, coming into the year that I was putting Jamar Chase as my player number 2. I was willing to take him right behind Justin Jefferson if I had the 2 spot. That's just how high I was going into the year. But obviously, this injury's kind of scared me off of Jamar Chase. If I have the pick, I'm thinking the same way as you right now.
Yeah, and in 3 weeks, when the season's getting closer and fantasy football drafts start happening, right? Labor Day weekend, the last weekend of August, we'll have more clarity, I'm sure, on the Joe Burrow injury and whether he's trending to play week 1 or if he's still going to, or if the coach is still saying several weeks then,
Yep. What about you?
Right now, where we're at, that's just how I feel.
What about you, Ron?
Clearly, I mean, all the attention is going to be on Mixon. I mean, that's the guy that, if he's there, you're going to take him no matter what, especially if he's going when was the last time Mixon went 3rd round? You definitely have to take him there. To the wide receiver situation, I just don't see how you pass up on Jamar Chase, man. I mean, and the guy that we haven't even mentioned is Tyler Boyd. T. Higgins is great, but there was some games last year where Tyler Boyd just went absolutely off. They did lose Hayden Hurst at tight end, but they got Irv Smith Jr. I think he was with the
Vikings.
With the Vikings last year. So that's another target. But regardless of it, man, I mean, playoffs, you have to fantasy. You still have to think week 15, week 16, and you want the teams that are going to have their players playing competitively. And why would you not want to have a Jamar Chase in your championship week, or to get to the championship? You're not going to pass this guy up. I don't see how the other guys can get injured. I think T. Higgins was out 3 to 4 weeks last year. So I'm really high on Jamar Chase. If he's there, 2 second pick, 3rd pick, top 5, I mean, I don't see how you pass on this guy, man.
And who knows, like home leagues are always different, right? Like I think that's something that we need to point out because we talk about ADP and everything. Who knows what will happen in a home league, right? Who knows if everybody in your draft gets scared off of Jamar Chase? What if you're staring at him,
like at 7th or something?
7 or 8, right?
Yeah.
Like that's
even like at pick 5,
like
at pick 5, because he's right now he's going top 4. He's going before Cooper Kupp. He's going before Kelsey. He's going before Eckler. It's CMC or Jefferson, CMC, and then him, or Jefferson, him, and then CMC, right? So, if you're looking at him at 4 or 5, then yes, for sure. But like I said, I rather have some of those other guys like Jefferson and CMC, of course, and Kelsey.
Yeah, there's some tough decisions to make this year.
It's about volume when it comes to fantasy, and this is a guy who's going to get targeted at least 8 times a game, maybe even 10. He's going to get the looks.
But that's Kelsey too. You know what I'm saying? Like it's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no T. Higgins over there with Kelsey.
Yeah. So overall for the Bengals, there's a lot to look forward to. Hopefully, Joe Burrow is healthy for their season, for their fantasy season. And for Ron, because that's his second team, so he's going to want to be rooting them on throughout the year.
I need to get a Cowboys Burrow jersey.
So before we sign off on the Bengals, any bets you want to put in, Ron? Anything you want to make the followers or the listeners aware of that we're taking here?
Season total clearly at over 10.5. I have him at 12-5, only losing 1 game at home. So
all right, Ron's putting his flag down.
Yep.
10.5 is not a bad number either.
All right.
Double-digit wins.
They won 12 last year. Their defense got better. I mean, let's do it, bro. Coaching staff is so underrated, too. They have a great coach, man. All right, who's next?
All right, let's get to it. This team that is slated to come in second, they finished second last year. It's the Baltimore Ravens. Had a little bit of an up and down year at 10-7. They were 5-3 on the road. 5-3 at home, 5-4 on the road. Split against the division. As I said, everybody in this division went 3-3, and they ended up losing to the Bengals in the first round, 17-24. They played a bunch of close games last year. I think this was the year where they had a bunch of those 2-point conversions, or maybe I'm getting it merged with last year. But either way, when you have John Harbaugh as your coach, you're going to gamble. So They had a lot of those close games, went 6-5 in them. Storyline going into the year, can they overtake the Bengals, or do the Bengals have a stronghold on this division? Are we looking at another AFC West where the Chiefs are rattling off 7 wins in a row in terms of the division? So that's the question that I have. I'm going to run through this just for the sake of time here. Looking at the schedule here, open up with the Texans, and they got the division match up there with the Bengals. Got a pretty, I would say, tough week or tough month of November when you're looking at it, and then they finish off the season with a divisional matchup there with the Steelers. Looking at their odds here, Super Bowl plus 1,800, AFC Championship plus 1,000, AFC North plus 235 to season total, again, 10.5, just like the Bengals. To make the playoffs, a little bit shorter at yes, minus 170. And Lamar Jackson to win MVP. Can he do it again? Plus 1,500. Gonna take a breath here. Ben, what are your thoughts early on the Bengals before we get to their off season?
This is we've seen Big Pap's revenge, and I think this is Lamar's revenge coming this season. Last year, I know a lot of people disappointed, man. A lot of people drafted Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, and it was just a disappointing year overall. But somehow, just because they're so well coached, they found themselves in the playoffs, and they had every chance to win that game against the Bengals. They really did. So I think it was like that stupid fumble that happened that screwed the game up on the QB sneak. So yeah, man, I like the Ravens this year. I know that this is a tough division. Obviously, teams like the Steelers, the Browns, they see Lamar so much that they kind of have somewhat of a game plan, for him. But the Ravens have finally done something to get him some offensive weapons. I like, is it Flowers? Their wide receiver for them?
Zay Flowers.
Yep. Zay Flowers that they just drafted.
Flowers.
They signed OBJ. They'll get 6 games out of OBJ before he gets hurt. But, Dobbins should be back this year. We saw him last year come back from the injury. And even when he looked like he was struggling running the ball, he was breaking out big runs late in last year's fantasy season. So I like the Ravens a lot. Going back to that page with the schedule and their odds, I mean, to make the playoffs, minus 170. I don't mind that at all.
I like that.
I don't mind that at all. I'm not willing to go on Lamar to win MVP, but I do think that it's going to be a big year for Lamar. He got paid, everything got resolved.
Yep.
He's healthy, he's fresh because he was out last year. So I really have big things happening for the Ravens this year.
Ron, what are your initial thoughts on the Ravens this year? Your intra-division rival here.
Same. I think I have them at 10-7, so I'm not too confident that they'll get over that 10.5. We just saw the Bengals at over 10.5 wins. This is a team that I don't think is on the Bengals level. That about a game or two off, so I can't give them the same number of wins that I will the Bengals. I don't think they win the North AFC Championship. Menos, the Chiefs are still the top dog there. So Lamar Jackson to win MVP is probably something that I would sprinkle on. Ben is absolutely right for all the points that he just gave. And if it's going to be off stats, MVP clearly regular season, adding OBJ, it could help open up the defense. So we know what Lamar Jackson loves to do. He's been the leading rusher on the team. So if he walks away with 1,000 yards, 1,500 yards rushing, and 1,000 yards passing, I mean, the MVP numbers in itself are just there. If they win 9-10 games, usually you have to win 12, 13 games, lead the be in first place of your division. But if those numbers are just so gaudy, then Lamar Jackson to win MVP at plus 1,500, get it in now.
And speaking of gaudy numbers, Lamar Jackson on record as saying he wants to throw for 6,000 yards this year. Not 4,000, not 5,000. He wants to throw for 6,000 yards. They got a new offensive coordinator. Like Ben said, they've got some weapons around him now. OBJ.
Roland, has he ever thrown for 4,000?
I'd have to fact check this, but I would say I venture to say no, because like Ron said, he's a dual threat guy, so he's good for at least 800 on a healthy year rushing. I know Josh Allen led the league in rushing for quarterbacks last year.
I'm gonna file off the wide receiver names, and you guys tell me if he can. Odell Beckham, Zay Flowers, Devin Duvernay, Laquan Treadwell, Tylan Wallace, Tariq Black, Sean Ryan, and Dante Demas.
And then they got
those are all the
Rashad
receivers.
Bateman too. And Mark Andrews,
And Mark
I think he
Andrews
can get to
and
4,000.
Isaiah
I think he can
Likely.
get to 4,000.
Yeah,
with
but
the new offense.
6,000, he was
No,
on that good
6,000.
shit
He
that
can
day.
go for 4-2. That'd be crazy, but no. The only thing
That
that I
would
would
be
say,
Roland,
4-2 would be
chill, Roland.
wild.
hey, I still you still owe me for that bet. I told you that he was going to lead the Ravens in rushing, and you took J.K. Dobbins.
Last
I
year,
won
We got
that by a
Allen in here.
landslide.
What's
No,
up,
it was the
Allen?
year before when J.K. Dobbins got
Oh,
hurt the
wait.
first week of the
Well,
season. But
yeah, well, you gotta
uh,
remind me.
I know, but
Look, Allen said he needs to rely more on his legs and not
well,
worry about
I
the
think this is
weapons
a
that he
good year
just
to
got.
find that
No,
out.
he
because-
says rely on his
Yeah,
weapons
rely on
and
his
less
weapons.
on his legs.
Oh, my bad.
I
Yeah.
think that's a good point, Alan, and I think that's kind of what Lamar Jackson is pointing to too, while saying that he wants to throw for 6,000. Sure, he's not really saying he's going to get there, but that's what he's shooting for to improve his passing. We've seen this with like a guy like Michael Vick. Remember the guy that came before him? Everybody wanted him to change up his game, pass a little bit more. I think Lamar Jackson has a little bit more of passing ability than Michael Vick. Maybe I'm crazy by saying that, but I think they're on the same playing field is what I'm trying to say. Maybe a little bit better.
I just don't think that he's accurate
For what,
enough
passing?
to pass.
But I think he has better weapons than Mike Vick ever had right now with Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews, OBJ. If he can give you another good year,
Roddy White.
Yeah, Roddy White was pretty good. But I'm just looking at the schedule and I'll sign off on the Ravens and we can get to fantasy right now with with these guys. I'm gonna lay off. I like the Ravens, but their end of the year is crazy. I mean, Bengals, Chargers, bye. And then the Rams. So is that the Rams? Yeah, never mind. Then
no, but even
Jags,
like the Jags, yeah, the
49ers. If Tua's healthy, the Dolphins, and then the Steelers.
Ain't no damn way Tua's gonna be healthy week 17, Roland.
Oh my gosh.
No way about that. No.
I mean, yeah, if you look at their schedule, they really don't have a lot of games that they're clearly going to win. You see the Cardinals.
They're going to start off 1-0, bro.
Texans.
Potentially 2-0
the Colts.
If Burrow's not there.
The Rams.
I mean, even if Burrow's there.
I only see 4 games on their schedule that are like, okay, they're going to win those for sure. You know, it's Colts, Cardinals, Rams, and Texans. Other than that, man, it's going to be tough.
What's up, everybody watching? Comments from YouTube. Gabe, thanks for watching on YouTube. Appreciate that. He says Lamar Jackson doesn't need 4K for MVP. He thinks he can get it done kind of like Ron was saying, dual threat, how he did it the first time. And then we got Bull in here. He's leading us to our next segment. I like when people comment and do the transitions for us. He's asking, what's going on in this damn episode? He wants to know, do we take Lamar in fantasy? Yes or no?
He ate up Lamar last year in fantasy. That's why he's at.
Since you're being so polite, we're going to go to fantasy right now. Let's take him off the screen so I can see everybody here. There's a lot to unload here. You got Lamar Jackson, quarterback 4.
I already know
J.K. Dobbins, running back 27. Will he be healthy the full year? OBJ, wide receiver 51. Rashad Bateman still hasn't lined up in practice, wide receiver 60. Mark Andrews, tight end 2. Kind of an off year last year. Will he bounce back? And then Justin Tucker, K1. I mean, what do I have to say? Year after year, the guy does it. So, Ben, Ron, what are your initial thoughts on the Ravens? Ben, you mentioned earlier about Lamar Jackson. You see him QB4, so you know that's after Mahomes, Allen, and Hurts. Do you think he puts himself into the top 3 at the end of the year?
But I also think like people are taking Herbert before him just based off of last year, you know, and the weapons that the Chargers have and what they drafted. Me personally, I like to grab players, draft them the year after they have a horrible year, right? Like Deebo Samuel, Deebo Samuel last year, horrible. So it's got to be a bounce back. Sometimes with guys when they go crazy, like Justin Jefferson, I mean, can he really do much better, right? It's only down from there. Yes, he's still going to be one of the top guys, but with Lamar Jackson, like I said, it's a revenge tour for Lamar. I do think that he's being drafted after more than 4 QBs. Herbert's going before him, Allen, Hurts, Mahomes, and there's a couple of there's another QB that's going before him as well. But I do like Lamar Jackson this year. J.K. Dobbins, one of those like flex options. Maybe he's the first running back on your bench. Mark Andrews, I never, aside from Travis Kelce, I'm not drafting a tight end in the first 3 rounds. I'm not. I think we learned our lesson the year after. For example, when a guy goes off, you don't get him the next year. Remember Darren Waller? Darren Waller went insane. and then everybody starts drafting him the next year, right after Kelsey, before Andrews. And what does he do? Piss down his leg, right? So, yeah, I'm looking for Lamar Jackson this year, the tight end. Like I said, I really don't touch in the first 3 rounds. But give me Lamar Jackson and some J.K. Dobbins this year. And Justin Tucker, for sure, kicker number 1. But I'm taking kicker with my last pick in the draft.
Yeah, the Mark Andrews thing, I think he had some big drops in the end zone last year that kind of screwed his touchdown variance. So maybe he's going to have a little bit of positive regression. But to your point, Ben, I'm probably still not touching him at where he's going in the 2nd or 3rd round. Ron, what's your philosophy on quarterback and tight end? Are you going to be targeting Lamar Jackson a little early this year or other quarterbacks?
I think so, man. I really do, for the reasons that we just pointed out. If I think that he's going to win MVP, he's going to have a hell of a year. Why would I not try to target him? I was in a position a couple years ago where there was just nobody there, man. And I kind of reached on a quarterback early, but it ended up paying off. I mean, if you're going to get a guy who can put up, 25, sometimes even 30 points, that accounts for 2 players on your team. So why not go after somebody like a Lamar Jackson? Mark wanted to know what round I would take a kicker in. I take Justin Tucker every possible year that I can. Let's face it, bro. This guy gets you almost a dime every game. I mean, 8 to 10 points you're going to rely on from a kicker. Sometimes your running backs and your wide receivers, your wide receiver 2 or your RB2 don't even get you that. If you can get 8 to 10 points from your kicker, I'm going to look for him in a 9th round, 10th round. Dare I say 8th round? I think that's a little much, but 9th or 10th round for a guy like Justin Tucker, who's like all-time kicker in fantasy. I mean, how do you pass that up? Let's not forget the system that he plays in. How many times was this guy kicking 50-yarders, 45-yarders, 60-yarders? The Ravens are a team that cannot put the ball in the end zone. Roland mentioned at the beginning of their coverage that they lost a lot of close games, and they're very low-scoring games because their defense is so good. Perfect team to have to take the kicker, and then when it's Justin Tucker, hook him, Ben. Hook him, baby.
Ron, I mean, hook him for sure, but everybody's wanting to invite you to their fantasy leagues after that shit you just said. 9, 10, may I say 8? Reach!
Maybe not 8th, but 10th.
You sounded like Al Davis out there.
You got your quarterback.
Your quarterback.
Your quarterback, your two running backs, your 2 wide receivers, your tight end, a backup running back, a backup wide receiver. I mean, you're already at 9th or 10th
before
right
I
there.
go kicker, bro.
Yeah, bro. Defenses put up more points in fantasy than Justin Tucker.
I mean, they start with 10.
This is the most heated debate, and it's on Justin Tucker.
Guys, in the comment section, are you all going defense or kicker first?
Or Justin Tucker? No. Defense or Justin Tucker. It's not kicker. Come on, it's not kicker. Justin Tucker is not any kicker, bro. You're talking about the number 1
I give you that. I give you that. I still go defense over a kicker.
Yes, thank you.
And if I'm drafting with Ron, I'm definitely not going that high to get Justin Tucker. I'm not gonna go and be like, hey, let me go get him in the 7th just to get Ron out of here with JT.
No, I'm gonna pull up a list, and I'm gonna later on, and I'm gonna be like, he scored more fantasy points in the last 3 years than all these guys, and they're gonna be like some crazy names.
If he's outscoring like the Niners and like the Steelers defenses, then for sure, but. Defenses start off with 10 points, bro. I gotta go defense over a kicker first.
And just to show some love to the other guys listed here, are you guys paying any attention to? Ben, you mentioned J.K. Dobbins at running back 27, OBJ, or Zay Flowers at this point. He's not listed here, but are you looking at any of these receivers, Ron? Are you just looking at Lamar Jackson and your boy JT?
I brought Ben back in. No, man, I'm really not. Lamar's never been a guy who's had a wide receiver 1 and giving him a lot of points. A guy like Odell, Duvernay, a rookie, and Zay Flowers. We thought that Mark Andrews was going to get all these points last year, and he didn't do that well either. And it's crazy because the Ravens have never really had a strong running game. So you would think, the wide receivers are going to blow up. So now, man, I'm not targeting guys like an OBJ or Rashad Bateman. Duvernay had some crazy games last year, but they were very hit or miss. And Bull, I'm not drunk. This is coming from the guy. I hate to bring it up publicly, but I always talk about this with Ben. This is a guy that drafted Callaway in like the 3rd round.
Preseason MVP, baby. It was like the 7th round, but for sure.
Nah,
Like,
hell no.
hey, but
It was
we
a
had like the
super big
fantasy
reach.
draft board that come with all the magnets, right? That you stick on them.
Yeah.
And my boy Bull had to bust out the Sharpie, bro, because my man Callaway, he wasn't even his name didn't come in the pack.
Hey, I know
Have
somebody
to
else
bust
who
out
was
the
high
Sharpie.
on Callaway here. I think my brother in the comments. He was a Callaway fan one year.
Yeah, I mean, but honestly though, Zay Flowers over all of these guys, because like I said, OBJ, I mean, the guy has nothing left in
This
his
is actually a good
bro. Can we really rely on him? Besides Marky Garza, you know, he doesn't have many loyal fans anymore at this point. But I'm going Zay Flowers with like a flyer pick, you know, late in the draft. 9th, 10th round instead of Justin Tucker.
We got two people who want their comments pinned. Gabe Bateman is a massive sleeper. Clip this, so we're gonna keep that receipt.
Hey, Roland said he hasn't even lined up at practice yet.
Yeah, he hasn't.
And then Alan said, "What about Nelson?"
Nelson no hands Aguilar. He said.
That guy just whatever team that guy goes to, he's not doing shit.
He's good for like 1 week, like 2-3 touchdowns, and like Joe Tovar will start him that week or some shit, like somebody random.
Good question here. Zay Flowers or a rookie Seattle receiver? I think he's talking about Jackson Smith-Njigba.
Jackson Smith-Njigba.
What do you guys say here?
I would go Zay Flowers.
A little bit higher in the depth chart.
Over a third option, yeah, he's higher in the depth chart, and we know that he could be that big play guy. He's got the speed. He's looked really good from what we've seen, you know, on Twitter clips from camp. So I'm buying Zay Flowers stocks this year.
What about you, Ron?
All right. Just to go against Ben, I'm gonna go with Jackson Smith-Njigba because I think that he can step up in a role with DK Metcalf and the only guy in front of him being
Tyler Lockett.
Tyler Lockett, who's
he's gonna miss some games.
Very injury prone and a veteran. So
but Metcalf's there too, bro. Like he's option number 3.
And just to give my answer, I'm gonna actually side with Ron, and this is only because I have a little bit more faith in the Seattle passing attack than I do the Ravens. So I think there might be more opportunities there. But in conclusion here, you know, maybe target Lamar Jackson high this year. Ben thinking he can put his way back into the top 3, have a bounce back year. Ron kind of likes him on that MVP range. And then, you know, go for Justin Tucker if you want. And then any bets.
If you want. All right.
Any bets
on the
Ravens.
Down for Ravens to make the playoffs.
All right.
Minus 170. Yeah, sprinkle Lamar MVP at plus 1,500. $50 wins you $750. Why not? It's Christmas time with the regular season MVP gets announced. Buy myself a nice gift.
All right, those are two plays. A little sprinkle on Lamar MVP plus 1,500, and Ravens to make playoffs minus 170. All right, let's get on to it. Let's wrap the division up. We got 2 more teams. I'm
going to take Ravens under too. My bad. I'm going to take Ravens
under 10.5.
Yeah, Ravens under 10.5.
Contradicting the MVP play.
No, it's not. Why?
Because if they go under, he's not winning MVP.
Yeah, they could win 9 or 10 games.
On your MVP.
And he could still get MVP. Nah, it's not. They could win 9 or 10 games and he could still win MVP, bro.
All right, so Ron likes that under 10.5 Lamar MVP. Let's get to their counterparts here. One of their rivals, the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're always there. You know, Mike Tomlin has never gone under 500. Continued again this past year. They finished 9-8, 4-4 at home. Not so good. Where they're usually pretty strong, and 5-4 on the road. Pretty good for having a rookie quarterback in Kenny Pickett. They split against the division, sounding like a broken tape record at this point, but they did split, and they ended up missing the playoffs at 9-8. Very competitive conference, the AFC, very stacked. 12 games decided by 8 points or less, 7-5 in those games. Storyline, is Kenny going to take another step forward, or will he see himself have a little bit of a sophomore slump? Moving on to their outlook in terms of Vegas odds and their schedule, open up pretty tough. But if you remember, they did so last year against the Bills. They pulled off that upset. They start off tough again with the 49ers, get a division game with the Cleveland Browns. They get an early bye, week 6. We'll come back to the schedule here shortly. And then just looking at their odds, Super Bowl plus 5,000, AFC Championship plus 3,000. Their season total, they're daring you to take it again. Over under 8.5. Will Tomlin get over 500 again? Juice to the over minus 140. They are picked to finish last in the division plus 450. to make the playoffs? Yes, plus 135. No, minus 155. And then just some, fun individual odds for the players here. Pickett to win the MVP, plus 5,000, and TJ Watt to win Defensive Player of the Year, an award he's won already, at plus 850. So, guys, gonna take a breath here, let you guys give your takes. What are y'all's thoughts on the Steelers coming into this year? Do you have high hopes for Kenny Pickett taking another step forward? And just your general thoughts.
Dale, Benicio.
I'm gonna start off with saying Steelers week 1 money line.
Okay.
You're
Okay.
high. You're so
Hey,
high.
we said
right
that
now.
last time though.
Yeah.
We were all on the Bills.
Yeah.
How much did Wally and
We
Diego
did
pay
say
you?
that
I
last
don't know to say
time.
that.
We're not going to shout out Wally and Diego. They're not even here watching the Steelers episode talking about Steelers.
I know, and Diego's always saying, "Hey, when you guys gonna pod? Hey, when y'all gonna pod?"
And this
I
is
text him like at 4.
this is a
Like we're gonna do AFC North tonight. Like your squad's gonna be on.
this is a guy that I give them a lot of crap. I call him Kenny Picks instead of Kenny Pickett because it just seems like he just chunks it up in the air and says, "Hey, George Pickens is somewhere down there, right?" But
Yeah,
this year, I mean, last year, TJ Watt was hurt for a pretty significant portion of their season. Clearly the best player on their team. I like the Steelers this year, bro. I'm going Steelers week 1 money line against San Francisco. We're not so sure, if Brock Purdy's going to be 100%. He'll probably be starting, but we don't know how healthy he's going to be. So I like the Steelers. They shocked the Bills. I don't know if it was last year or the year before, but week 1, in like a 13-10 game where they scored on a block punt for a touchdown. So
They did the Bills week 1 2 years ago, and it was the Bengals last year.
yeah, so I mean they do this, right? Here's San Francisco with some question marks at quarterback. The Steelers are getting like 4, getting 3.5. Give me the money line. So and don't compare me to Collinsworth. He did some nasty stuff to Dwayne Haskins, R.I.P. This past week.
That was Colin Cowherd.
no,
Oh, who did he say?
Yeah, Colin
Collinsworth?
Cowherd.
Who did he call me?
Colin Cowherd did it. Chris Collinsworth.
Man, they're all the same, bro.
So Ron, do you have?
Hey,
the same
Roland, I want over 8.5 as well.
over 8.5 minus 140.
That's
like it.
official.
Yeah.
But I'm telling y'all, money line week 1.
Nah, I'm not on the money line week 1. Whatever was happening off camera is like, when I go to New Braunfels, that's what we gonna do when we get to New Braunfels. But I am in total agreement with you on the over 8.5. I think that they easily go 9-8 because of their strength of schedule. I think it's 11th easiest. They have teams on here like Houston. Then they have the Colts, the Patriots, the Cardinals, Green Bay, the Rams. I mean, the only thing about them is that they get their bye week in week 6. It looks like they get it extremely early, but they are a young team. They don't have a lot of veterans. So I like the over 8.5 for sure. Other than that, man, it's tough to gauge Kenny Pickett because he did show flashes. So did Pickens, but I still think that they're really young. They're well coached, so that definitely saves them from getting blown out. They do have the ability to shock teams, just like you guys mentioned, but their overall maturity to put an entire season together and go late into the year, I don't see that happening just yet. TJ Watt is back this year. I think he's fully healthy. I don't think he gets hurt again. I think they're extra cautious with him. That defense will keep him in games, but ultimately they're easily 9-8, possibly 10-7. But I think that's the ceiling for them.
It's interesting too, Roland, to make playoffs. No, minus 155, but over 8.5 juice to minus 140. So kind of like last year, they can go 9-8, miss the playoffs, but still hit that over.
I want to make this a squad ride on the over 8.5, and I've historically been low on the Steelers. I called for their under last year. They beat me. I'll admit that. But looking at this schedule, it is a little tough. But man, there are some winnable games. When we talk about them splitting with the division, 3-3. I mean, discount. I don't want to say you can book 3 wins in the division, but if we're counting a tough division here, it's safe to say that they'll split with some of these guys here. And then you got the Packers. Who knows what you're going to get out of them? Tennessee is expected to be down, man. And then you get Arizona, New England, Indy.
That
like
stretch
that
right there. That
I
stretch.
like that
Yeah.
stretch right there too. Yeah, so I like
That stretch is gonna get us to the total right there.
Exactly.
Those 4 games.
Yeah, so I like this schedule. I like the Steelers this year. Let's get into what they did in the offseason real quick. We mentioned George Pickens last year. That's who they drafted in the draft prior, addressed the offense. This year, they addressed offense again, got a tackle to help protect Kenny Pickett. We all know the offensive line is a big discussion there in Pittsburgh, historically trying to improve that. And then I like this pick here in the second round, Joey Porter Jr., very talented, very highly touted cornerback for most of his time there at Penn State. Slipped a little bit in the draft to the second round. They got that pick from Chicago, ended up taking that cornerback. And then another guy I want to point out, probably one of the bigger guys, Darnell Washington, the tight end from Georgia, another little target for, or not little target, but a big target for Kenny Pickett here to throw down in the middle of the field. And then some additions. Allen Robinson finds himself another team. He's going to be lining up.
That's crazy. That's
He's
crazy.
going to be lining up there. And then the other name that everybody will probably know here on this list is Patrick Peterson, which I also like that signing. He is up in age, but we all know corners can play up in age if you maintain your athleticism and you avoid injury, which he has done. And he's going to be a good mentor for Joey Porter, I would think. And then they lost some defense there in Miles Jack, Bush,
a lot of defense.
Sutton, and William Jackson. So they did have to replace that there with the cornerbacks that they signed and drafted. What are y'all's thoughts on their offseason as you look at it here?
Bro, I saw an article today about Miles Jack before getting that phone call from the Eagles was going to become an electrician or a plumber just because he said no, I saw this article today. It was on Bleacher Report or Action App, and they said that he didn't think that he was going to play anymore until he got a phone call from the Eagles, but he said he couldn't just sit at home. Obviously, he's made millions, right? He was drafted, I think number 6 by the Jaguars, or maybe in the second round by the Jaguars. But yeah, he was gonna become an electrician or a plumber before the Eagles called him. And I mean, man, you're a defensive player and the Eagles call you. You're gonna go over there and be on that stacked defense. So good situation for Miles Jack. Shout out Miles Jack. But guys, how is Allen Robinson still getting NFL jobs, bro? It's disgusting. It really is. I love Patrick Peterson back there. I think him and Minkah Fitzpatrick are going to be awesome for that defense, along with TJ Watt. I'm not saying necessarily play-wise. Patrick Peterson might be more of a scenario type of guy. We have seen him get beat now. He's not that punt returner DB that he was with the Cardinals back in the day.
Maybe like a nickel.
But yeah, but he's that OG. He's that OG on the defense. So like Roland said, he's going to do good for Joey Porter. I like what they have going, man. I like, we know defense wins championships. I'm not saying this is a championship roster just because I don't think Kenny Pickett's at that level, but I do like the Steelers this year. And I like what they did in the draft, taking somebody like Joey Porter Jr. I mean, the lineage that he comes from. Ain't nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Marky and Alan need to chill in the comments, bro. Well, Marky's always got to come with that, hostility. As far as the Steelers, man, I mean, if you look at their running back position, obviously Najee's there. He didn't do great last year, but I remember Jaylen Warren. Dude is an absolute truck of a man. He was like he was a sleeper last year who was getting some touchdowns, goal line touchdowns. Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, Allen Robinson, Miles Boykin, Calvin Austin. Receivers are decent enough. And I think we're hitting it right on the nail right on the head with this, guys. The talent is there. I just don't think the centerpiece at the quarterback position is there. Could you compare it to like a Jimmy G kind of vibe where he always has good teams, but if those teams had another quarterback, they could have done a lot better.
And
just kind of
I mean, Kenny Pickens, I'm not going to say that this is going to be an all-time defense, but I really do expect the Steelers to be a top 5 defense. Earlier when we were talking about Lamar and the way that some of these teams game plan for him, every time he plays the Steelers, bro, it's a tough day. It's a tough day. So I think playing behind a good defense like that, you're able to game manage. And if Kenny Picks can have me start calling him by his government name, get Kenny Pickett, I think the Steelers are going to have a chance. I'm not saying that they have Super Bowl aspirations, right? Maybe in their own locker room, but in reality, I think they're a wild card team.
Yep.
Yeah, but they went 5-4 away last year, so they had a winning record away from what is it? Heinz Field. I don't know if it's still Heinz.
I think they
Heinz Field
renamed
now.
it. I don't think it's Heinz anymore.
Yeah,
They
I
took
think
on the
they
ketchup
did.
sign or the ketchup.
They went 4-4 at home and 3-3 against the division. So I think it's just going to be a very, very reflective year, just like last year.
So we like the over 8.5, and let's get to their fantasy outlook real quick. Another team where there's kind of a lot to unload when you think about it, because they do have some guys that are going to be drafted in that second to third, maybe seventh round. Kenny Pickett, QB 20, Najee Harris, running back 14, down 9 spots in terms of preseason ADP. He was running back 5 coming into the year last year. Deontay Johnson also down a couple spots at wide receiver 23. Pickens, wide receiver 36, makes his debut into the top 50. And then Pat Freiermuth at tight end 8. So I'm just going to ask the question here. If you guys are looking at Najee Harris and maybe let's say the third round, if he gets there and you've drafted 2 receivers to start your draft, are you looking at Najee or are you maybe pressing the button on another receiver?
I'm not looking at Najee at all, bro. He has no big playability in his bag. Like, this is kind of like how I said about T. Higgins. Obviously, these are RB1 and, for T. Higgins, wide receiver 2, but on most teams, wide receiver 1. Najee Harris on my draft board, like, his name doesn't even come up. You know what I mean? I'm really not looking at him. I think he's a move the chains kind of guy. The Steelers do like playing that style, Big Ten football, run, 4 yards, and then you're in a third and short, right? But for the most part, I'm not looking at Najee Harris at all. Where I'm looking at with the Steelers, I'm going down to George Pickens. I'm looking at him, as a 6th, 7th round addition to the team, maybe first receiver on the bench, and then Pat Freiermuth. If I'm punting on tight end and I'm not able to get somebody like Darren Waller with the Giants in like the 6th round, I'll take Freiermuth, late. So those are the only 2 guys that I'm looking at for the Steelers is George Pickens and Pat Freiermuth. I think that you can get pretty good draft value just based off where they are. I saw Marky in the comments saying he would take Pickens over Deontay Johnson this year. I'm with him, and I don't agree with Marky a lot, but shout out Marky.
What about you, Ron? You having the same vibes here for the Pittsburgh Steelers fantasy?
Yeah, and for the reason that I mentioned, man, just because of Jaylen Warren. I mean, I think that he's a Mike Tomlin kind of player. Mike Tomlin kind of favors those guys who are not an underdog story, but who just, I believe he was a rookie last year, right? Or if not, maybe his first or second.
Ron going for that 16-20 team fantasy football league, calling out Jaylen Warren.
No, man, I'm just saying. I think he'll steal touches from Najee, and I think they'll be at the goal line. So I'm definitely off Najee, just like how you guys were saying. And if you think about it in comparison to the Bengals that we just talked about in the beginning, you had Joe Mixon at RB12 and Najee Harris at RB14, which is crazy because I think last year you would have taken Najee all day, every day, and now over Mixon, yeah. So the receivers too, Johnson, I think he's a big play guy. I'm staying away from him. Pickens, the same thing. I would go Pickens over Johnson though, because I think Pickens will get targeted a little bit more. But there's really not anybody on the Steelers offense, man, who
they're just kind of good overall. Like they're gonna win some ugly football games, bro. Yeah, you know what I mean? They're not gonna be scoring 35, 40 points. No. They're gonna be winning those 20 to 13, 2017 type games.
Yeah,
and you said it. If the defense is the star of this team and is gonna, they're gonna kind of game plan their games around the defense.
Tucker. Give me that defense. Yeah,
their defense was on my team the year I won a league. They played a big part.
But, there you go.
Just really real short on Najee. He's just a guy that needs a lot of volume to get anything of value in terms of fantasy points.
Good point.
And even with all that volume, there's going to be weeks where he doesn't get it because, like Ben said, he doesn't have any moves. He's a big guy. You'd expect him to be a little bit better, have some break the tackle ability. Yeah, but just not there. I'm beginning to think that Najee Harris is not, of that skill set. I'm not trying to say that he sucks, but you know what I'm getting at. I'm not really touching any of these guys here. Pause. I'd probably go Pickens, if anything, late round because you get that value in terms of the ADP versus his counterpart and Johnson. And it looks like him and Pickett have a good rapport.
Same draft class, right?
Yeah, like Ron said. He might get targeted more. I think the targets will be even, but I think that means that Pickens is going to take a little bit more of that share. He's going to move up from last year.
And bro, like if Pickens didn't have that reputation coming out of college, like you can see it, bro. The guy, I mean, just from his clips, right? Even in the season, he made some nasty, some toe tap swag. You know what I mean? And even in preseason, you've seen reps where he's going one-on-one with Joey Porter Jr. and he's making some ridiculous catches. So he is kind of boomer bust. But Kenny Pickett does seem pretty comfortable throwing it up to this guy.
Yeah,
he's the type that goes up and gets it.
Yeah, he's the guy that when Pickens or Pickett doesn't have anywhere to go and he's going to chunk it up, he's going to give it to Pickens. That's where he's chunking the ball to and throwing his Hail Mary, if you will. So, yeah, I like Pickens.
And to that point, I agree with what Marky, like Ben said, it doesn't happen a lot. But right here, goal line Pickens. I mean, that's exactly what you do with the goal line. Throw it up. And
little fade.
Your best receiver can go up and get it.
Yeah.
Yep. So in fantasy, we like Pickens, maybe Freiermuth.
But the consensus play here was the over for sure.
Hey, remember how good Deontay Johnson was with Big Ben, bro? I mean, that's insane. He was getting 12.
And that's because he still had Juju. He had Juju to fight.
He's that possession receiver for his team, but I really think that George Pickens is going to make a name for himself.
And his only competition other than Deontay Johnson is who we mentioned, Allen Robinson, in terms of receivers.
Come on, man.
He can beat that, I think, at this point. And
Allen Robinson is more of a Deontay Johnson. George Pickens is different. He's different.
For sure. All right, well, let's move on to the team that finished last year. Don't know if they're going to finish last again this year. It's the Cleveland Browns. We're going to run through this pretty quick. 7-10 last year, 4-4 at home, 3-6 on the road. They did split against the division just like everybody else. They ended up missing the playoffs, and they did not have such good luck in their close games last year. Maybe some positive regression on the way because they went 3-6 in 9 one-score games. Season headline for these guys, for me, simply put, is Watson washed? Is he going to be able to regain his 2019 form when he was a top 5 quarterback in that range? He was winning leagues, and he was thought about in most circles as a top 5 overall quarterback, fantasy and real life. So that's really the question there. Schedules on the left. You got their odds here. Super Bowl plus 3,500, AFC Championship plus 1,800. Season total, a little bit lower than the top 2 teams in this, but higher than the Steelers. Over 9.5. It's plus 115 to the over. So the juice is on the under on this one. AFC North plus 380. Pick to finish third. To make the playoffs, yes, plus 115. No, minus 135. And individual odd here, Watson to win MVP plus 3,000. And I forgot to put it up here, but Nick Chubb is about plus 1,700 to win Offensive Player of the Year. So quick thoughts here on the Browns, guys.
Yeah, I'll go real quick, Ron. I don't like that they have an early bye week. I'm not ready to say Deshaun Watson is washed. Obviously, coming back, week 12 or week 11 when he did, after all that bullshit, it's going to be kind of tough. And to be honest, they were out of the playoffs by the time he came back. I expect them to be in games, but I think if you're taking Watson to win MVP, you might as well flush that ticket down the drain. I don't think that there's any shot on that. I would like to make the playoffs just based on the fact that I think that the Steelers are going to be better than them. Give me the Browns to finish last in the division again.
I like that. That's a good odd. We can look that up. Certainly can find something for that. Ron, what are your thoughts on the Browns real quick before we look at their offseason?
Man, it's funny. That's exactly what I wrote right here on my little notes. Make playoffs at only minus 135. Yeah, I'm definitely on that. I have them at 8-9 on the year. So even if they win one more game than I think they will, they still won't hit the total. It's not a for sure bet because it's the NFL any given Sunday. So I'm not completely taking that under. The best bet here is for them clearly not to make the playoffs at minus 135. With Amari Cooper, man, other than that, his wide receivers fall off. Donovan Peoples-Jones, Elijah Moore, which are great guys, but they're not game changers, man. And now that Hunt is gone, Mondo, I don't know which Hunt Mondo thinks we're talking about, but regardless of it, Nick Chubb's the only guy there. Now, everybody's on Nick Chubb. I think for me this year, it's Nick Chubb, Browns.
Rightfully so, right?
But But what happens if Nick Chubb goes down?
Ron,
The Brown season
calm down, Ron.
no.
He's
I'm
talking
just
about the
saying,
outlook for the Browns.
Yeah, I mean, their season is done, bro, because Nick Chubb is going to be the bell cow of that offense. Everything I think should definitely revolve around him. If he's done for some, unfortunate reason, dude, that win total is definitely staying under, and they're definitely not making the playoffs. So that's it, man. It's Nick bust for me, and not to make the playoffs.
Yeah, let's make that a consensus at no -135. I have a hard time. I have a hard time seeing them get to 10 wins, and the only way that I see them getting to 10 wins is if Watson does regain that top 5 form. Like if Watson walks onto the field and he's a Houston Deshaun Watson, I can see him ascending this team because that's how good he was. Let's not forget that. I think that's being lost.
A lot has happened, though.
Exactly.
Not necessarily
That's
physically,
exactly what I was gonna say.
But to be a quarterback, it's really a mental game.
Yeah, exactly.
He's got a lot of shit going on. Guy was lucky enough to get a second chance, but to be honest, no to make the playoffs, and then they're in that tough division. Maybe 2, possibly it is a division where 3 teams can make the playoffs, right? But if we expect this jump from the Steelers, and that defense, I think, is going to give Deshaun Watson fits. So I really like them to finish last place again, and I'm glad that it was consensus on the no to the playoffs.
Justin he's dealing. I think he has
Justin's on
injury.
Justin's on the DL.
He's on the DL. The DL.
He's starting the season on the PUP list.
But he'll be back. He'll be back for week 1.
Yeah, I mean, he's not even contributing on the sidelines. He's just not with the team right now. So
he's not traveling with the team right now.
He's doing the workout with his independent doctors. He's got his own doctors that he's traveling with.
And Eddie, shout out Eddie.
Yeah. But
shout out Eddie. But no, man, I mean, back to Ben's point, and to your point where you said, is he washed? I think mentally he might be washed. He might just not be in the game anymore, I think. And it's crazy, bro, because he just signed that massive contract, the guarantee.
Guarantee.
Gonna look bad on the Browns.
But that's the Browns, bro. They've always been an incompetent front office. They've always been an incompetent front office. They drafted Johnny Manziel, was the fuck up of a lifetime, and then they went and drafted Baker Mayfield at number 1, bro. I mean, come on, man.
But I mean, when they made the move, other than all the baggage with Deshaun Watson, everybody was kind of like, well, shoot, Deshaun Watson with the Browns, that might work because they on paper were a good team for those years. It's just that Baker Mayfield could never put it together for them. So I see it there. I'm not going to go on the record and say that I think Deshaun Watson is going to ascend. I'm on that no to make the playoffs, but that's just the only way that I would see them getting there is kind of what I'm getting at. But let's look at the season. What were you gonna say, Ron? Real quick?
No, man, I don't know if he has that winning mentality anymore. Like to go out there and want to win. It's just I have so much money now.
Said he was the football's Michael Jordan.
To y'all's point, a lot has happened. So who knows? It might not be the same for him up there. But looking at their offseason real quick, and then we'll get to the fantasy outlook. Looking at their draft, a little bit of both in terms of the sides of the ball. Going to skip to their additions, though, because they were pretty busy in this offseason. They did get Elijah Moore, like Ron said, to help out with Deshaun Watson there on the edge. Darius Smith, an edge rusher from Minnesota. His teammate followed him, interior defensive line. Dalvin Tomlinson, one of the better defensive linemen in the league, also signed with the Browns this offseason. Not going to try pronouncing this name. I don't know if anybody wants to try, but another edge rusher. What is it, Ben? Go for it.
Siaki Ika.
Not
a jailer?
No, I'm talking about the key additions here.
We're talking about Zadarius Smith?
No, the one below him.
We're talking about
You're not a very good listener in school, I can tell.
Yeah, my bad.
It's all right.
He's colorblind too.
I'm multitasking right now.
We got Juan Thornhill at safety, and then Marquise Goodwin, another receiver finding another job, but he's immensely talented, so good for him. And then departures, they lost Jacoby Brissett, their longtime quarterback, and then they lost Kareem Hunt. He's currently a free agent. And then I just put this guy up here last.
He's not a free agent anymore. He signed with the Saints.
He officially signed with the Saints because I know he went to the Saints and he visited the Colts and he was going to sign with the Colts and he left them.
Did I get fake news?
So, and then Greedy Williams, I think he was like a top 2 pick for them at one point.
Did they just sign that guy? Everybody was super
LSU,
excited.
Yeah, he's already with another team. He signed with the Eagles.
Everybody's going to the Eagles.
Yeah,
or
they're
what?
stacking up that defense. But let's look at them fantasy-wise, and then we'll recap everything for the Browns when we're done here, because they only got really like 4 players to talk about in depth. That's Deshaun Watson at QB9, might be a mid-round target. Nick Chubb at running back 9. We mentioned Hunt leaving. Dearness Johnson also left. I didn't mention him there, but he was their third-string running back. Amari Cooper, wide receiver 18, some value there possibly, and Njoku at tight end 10. So, Ben, you're the fantasy guru here. Kick us off. Who are you looking at here on this Browns roster?
Njoku, because I punt on tight ends, right? So he's a freak.
He's actually not a bad look.
He's a jump ball type of guy, red zone type of guy. And if you're punting on tight end, it means that you're just going touchdown or bust, right? So he's that type of player. Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb is going before Derrick Henry in some of these mock drafts that I'm doing. I think that that's insanity, but I do think that Nick Chubb should also be going before Saquon Barkley. And so should Derrick Henry. I do like Nick Chubb. If I'm maybe like in a standard league and I'm drafting running back, I wouldn't mind, taking somebody like Derrick Henry and then Nick Chubb, or Bijan Robinson and then Nick Chubb. But for the most part, if you go wide receiver in round 1 and you're at the back of that draft, Nick Chubb could be your RB1, on the comeback. Yep. So I think that we're going to find out a lot receiving-wise from Nick Chubb, because Kareem Hunt's not going to be there. Dearness Johnson's not going to be there. I know they did sign Kelly from the Chargers, that dude out of UCLA.
John Kelly Jr.?
Yeah.
And then I think they got a rookie who's making noise too, Jerome Ford, I've heard, but he's not listed here.
But for the most point, this is a Nick Chubb breakout year, bro.
Yeah, I was going to say, to your point, he's going to catch more balls.
Last year was
just virtue of not having Hunt there. Like, he might not get to like that Barkley level or, those
or Eckler
McCaffrey level or whatever, but just out of virtue of those guys not being there, he's going to catch more balls. So
and not only that, inside the 5, when the Browns get inside the 5, they're probably going to hand the ball off at least 2 times to this guy. He's pretty reliable for touchdowns. So I do like Nick Chubb. I'm still taking Derrick Henry, CMC, and Eckler before him. But, Nick Chubb and Bijan Robinson, that's where I'm at right now. I think that guys like Barkley, I would put Barkley behind Chubb. I know that he's ranked higher by ESPN and NFL standards. I would draft Nick Chubb before Barkley. Nick Chubb has been pretty healthy, man, for his whole career.
Yeah, I like Nick Chubb.
The only thing that I will say is that division. We've been talking about defenses. The Ravens are very well coached on defense. The Steelers are very well coached on defense.
The Bengals
and the Bengals are trying to make improvements to their defense. So he might have it tough, within the division. Same thing goes for Lamar Jackson. But, even in a 20-17 game, Nick Chubb can have 2 touchdowns in that game for the Browns. Their offense does rely through him.
And this fool has some, not just, 60-yard games with 2 touchdowns. Or this guy's like 4 touchdowns, 120 yards. There was a game last year where him and Hunt rushed for over 100 yards. I mean, he has the capability to give you 80, 90, 100 yards, not a game, but a lot more often than a lot of other running backs.
He's the favorite to lead the league in rushing this year also.
Rightfully so.
I don't know if there's a prop, but Deshaun Watson rushing yards might be a good look, just with the fact that it's just Chubb back there. And Deshaun Watson, for as crazy as we think he might be gone mentally, he's still a very athletic guy. He likes to scramble. I mean, he's not your typical pocket passer. So a Deshaun Watson rushing prop might be a good look this year.
I really hope my draft shake out to where I can take Nick Chubb, because outside of the names that Ben mentioned at the top, like Eckler, CMC, who's the other one?
Barkley and Bijan.
See, I'd take him maybe over Bijan, just because, and we can talk about it more when we talk about Bijan, but we all saw he came out 3rd in the depth chart. That's probably just Arthur Smith being a coach or whatever. But dude, they're not going to automatically just tell Algier to kick rocks. Algier did good last year.
And we'll get more into it, but the thing is, Roland, when we've seen guys get drafted that high, Saquon Barkley, Leonard Fournette, a lot of these running backs that do go top 10, when you go top 10 with a running back, they run them into the ground. They use them up.
CMC.
And I'm sure he's going to do fine. I'm just saying that I'm getting to my point. The theme for me with the NFL backfields this year is there's a lot of muddy waters. There's a lot of stuff that you have to sift through this year. In my eyes, this is one of the clearest backfields. You know exactly what you're getting when you draft Nick Chubb. He's number one, no doubt, no competition. He's going to catch more balls with Hunt being gone, and you don't have to decide, what's going to happen, with the Bijan Robinson situation in my eyes, or some other situations out there in the running back lands or the backfields, excuse me. So I like Nick Chubb a lot. I hope it works out where I can take him in the second round in my drafts, because I really do think he's going to be a bell cow. Like a Nick Chubb or Breece Hall, like Nick Chubb easily, right?
That's easy.
A lot of people are saying Breece Hall is a pretty good option this year too. I'm just throwing names out there also.
If Marky's right about their O-line being so good, that's another check mark for the Nick Chubb box.
Nick Chubb or Tony Pollard.
Yeah, like that's Nick Chubb all day, bro. I mean, you got to go with the bell cow guy. Like this is going to be Tony Pollard's first year of being RB1, being that, and who knows, maybe they sign Zeke on the cheap. When it cuts Tony Pollard's work, a quarter.
That's what I think might happen.
Or whatever.
Bro,
but Nick Chubb, like you said, he's one of the safest picks. You know exactly what you're getting. We haven't seen much from him receiving, but this might be the year where he sees maybe 50, 60 receptions.
That's a lot for a guy that I don't think he's gotten like over shit. I need to look at this, but
right, because Kareem Hunt has been that guy. It could. I'm just saying, if that happens. Yeah. He could finish RB1, bro.
For sure. And that's what you want to look for when you're drafting, right? You want to see somebody who's going to finish there in that top 3 of the position, and he's definitely a guy that has that. Everything is pointing up for me for Nick Chubb. Doesn't have injury issues, not a lot of competition in the backfield, great offensive line. Deshaun Watson hopefully is going to be better this year.
Just so we can get off the Nick Chubb thing real quick, what do you think about Deshaun Watson? We talked about him, personally, whatever, but fantasy-wise at QB9?
I think if you pass on quarterbacks, he's like the last guy that I think you can take. Like I would probably go.
Would you rather have Geno Smith or Deshaun Watson?
That's tough. That's tough to me. I would probably gun to my head right now.
Say last year didn't happen for Geno.
Well, I would go Deshaun Watson all day.
You can't say that.
But I would go Geno Smith right now. But I would take Deshaun Watson over Dak Prescott.
Wow.
I would do that.
I'm not with you.
You're not with me on that?
No. I might even think about possibly an Anthony Richardson over. I don't think that Watson should be a quarterback one for any fantasy football.
So I'm not planning on drafting Watson. I'm not targeting him. That's not how I'm drafting this year. But the guy other than Chubb that points out to me on this list is Cooper. I like Cooper. Ron, you said it. The names drop off after Amari Cooper. Not allowed to target competition. Not going to have to deal with that. And he's already proven to be Deshaun Watson's number 1 target. He's still an immaculate route runner.
Top 20.
Still a top 20 guy at the position. And I think he has the ability, if Deshaun Watson, takes a step up, he can finish in that top 10 range of the position, potentially. I think he can have that good of a year because he's going to be the number 1 target for Deshaun Watson. And that used to mean something. So we'll see.
All right, well, that wraps it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, we try to go short, man, but shit. I mean, I think it was just the fact that the division is so good that there was a lot of things to say. This is a tough division
to wrap up on the Browns, fantasy-wise, go after Nick Chubb. Ben is saying stay away from Watson at all costs. Cooper, I like as an option, and Njoku, if you punt on tight end, is an option. And to make the playoffs,
that was a consensus, right?
At minus 135 on the Browns.
And then we have over consensus on Steelers, right?
Over consensus on Steelers.
Over 9.5?
Over 8.5.
No,
minus 140. And Mark, since you've been with us this whole time, today or tomorrow, I'm going to start working on the NFC West for you. So NFC West will be the next one that we cover. We'll talk about that one next. Well, actually, no, we already talked about.
We already did that, Mark. You weren't.
I take that back. Bro. Yeah, you missed that. I'm sorry.
Go
sorry,
listen
Mark.
to it. You're only going to beat the Cardinals.
Yeah. Yeah, we already talked about the NFC West, so I apologize there.
All right.
But we'll get to the NFC East or something next week. Make it exciting for the Cowboys fans. But that's it. Hope you guys have had a good night. Talk to y'all later.
Peace.
Peace.